The chaos that has erupted, we talked about it yesterday. You've seen the pictures of the aircrafts flying thousands of people out at a time, refugees from this regime, all while a speech happened yesterday afternoon from President Biden where he pointed a lot of blame at a lot of different places.
I inherited a deal that President Trump negotiated with the Taliban. The choice I had to make as your president was either to follow through on that agreement or be prepared to go back to fighting the Taliban.
He's blaming the previous presidency of Donald Trump, saying that, they decided this was the path forward, and when we got in, we're going to move ahead. But that's kind of the excuse we see with a lot of these policy decisions out of the administration. You look at the border, you look at various other foreign policy issues that they will blame the previous administration's decision on something. But what they ended up doing was gutting the actual plan. Mm-hmm. They took the top line issue, gutted the plan, and then blamed them when their gutting of the plan falls apart.
One of the things about Trump's plan, and it was true, he did make the initial decision to pull troops out, which is, I think, the right decision, but it was condition-based. President Trump said, we will leave, but he put the Taliban on notice. You can't do this and you must do that. There were conditions. And when the Biden administration came in, those conditions, I haven't heard anything about any of those conditions.
No conditions. Just feels like we're abandoning ship.
Yeah. So it's not the plan. It's not the decision. It's how this president is executing that plan.
And then later on, pointed some blame not only at again, someone like a President Trump, but also at the Afghani people.
Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country. The Afghan military collapsed, sometime without trying to fight. If anything, the developments of the past week reinforced that ending U.S. military involvement in Afghanistan now was the right decision.
We aren't disagreeing that it was time to pull out, but it was the execution and the plan. But also the president blaming the Afghanis, saying they didn't want to fight for their country. They gave up. They walked away. And there's truth to that. There was not a resistance at the Taliban at this moment. But as we were discussing, thousands and thousands of Afghani citizens died for their country. So that's selling short the effort that people did do.
I know there are concerns about why we did not begin evacuating Afghans civilians sooner. Part of the answer is some of the Afghans did not want to leave earlier, still hopeful for their country. And part of it because the Afghan government and its supporters discouraged us from organizing a mass exodus to avoid triggering, as they said, a crisis of confidence.
The idea of blaming the people, they didn't want to get out of here. I don't know if they thought that was an option, to just run for the hills, to flee. It feels, again, very insincere, very tone deaf.
I have a couple of friends that were Afghan interpreters for U.S. forces. There are people lined up, who've wanted to get out of Afghanistan and come to the United States for years. The idea that somehow or another we couldn't evacuate people sooner because no one wanted to leave is flat out false on its face.
We went to Afghanistan almost 20 years ago with clear goals. Get those who attacked us on September 11th, 2001, and make sure al-Qaeda could not use Afghanistan as a base from which to attack us again. We did that. We severely degraded al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We never gave up the hunt for Osama bin Laden, and we got him. That was a decade ago.
Almost all Americans agree that we should get out of Afghanistan, but it was the chaos and the crisis of humanity there that he either did not address or he simply blamed it on someone else.
There was a tone there that felt like, that was a decade ago. What are we doing? Again, as you stated, there's a mass majority of the country that thought we need to be getting out of Afghanistan. However, that's not the problem. No. That's not the discussion of what's going on. What's going on is we're seeing thousands of people trying to get onto aircrafts, risking their lives, some losing their lives, just trying to get on a plane to America because they know what is at hand.
Instead of showing empathy and grief and concern for what's happening there,
right,
he wanted to defend his own actions. And in fact, when all this was happening over the weekend, Logan, for 4 days, we heard nothing. He disappeared in the middle of a human crisis of incredible magnitude. We heard nothing. I'm convinced he made the speech yesterday because probably his aides forced him to do it.
Either the people that wrote it and proposed this speech said, listen, we want to make this issue about withdrawal and defend withdrawal, even though that's not what people are concerned about. Kind of play a political game, so to speak, of let's put it on this focus that, we made the right decision to withdraw. Or they are that out of touch with where both parties are.
This is not the time for assignment of blame. We've got to make sure we get the Americans there that are trapped inside of Afghanistan deep, some of them in Kabul and around the airport. We need to make sure that our military is focused on that and that alone. We got to make sure we get those folks out. We were very clear. President Trump wanted to get our boys and girls home. Nobody is squawking the objective of getting our men and women out of Afghanistan. But they seem to have forgotten two basic rules. One, you have to execute this in a way that reflects the history and the context of what's going on. And second, there's a real responsibility to make sure that we reduce the risk that we're ever attacked from that place again. And now we find ourselves in a place where the president says he'd planned for everything, but yet had to, on an emergency basis, send back in even more troops than were there 12 months before that. It's really sad.
He blamed President Trump. He blamed the Afghan civilians. He blamed the Afghan military. There was no acceptance of personal responsibility. In saying the buck stops with him, he was very, very good at passing the buck yesterday.
So many cases where this does happen, where your disconnect from reality occurs because you are at a leadership position and people are afraid to tell you, we made the wrong decision. Mm-hmm. We messed up. This was wrong. Yeah. They're afraid of it, and therefore you're going to go and you're going to defend everything. You're going to blame everyone else, and you're going to defend. We made the right call. When it's okay to just say, this is chaos, and we're going to do what we can to fix it.